Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're in the zone. Pete Coles, Rich Sutter, dynamic duo, not seen since Redford and Newman in the Sting. Okay, folks, we jump off in our Pete's Corner segment right away. Got a lot to talk about here. The NBA is in full flow, and NCAA kicks off on Monday. But we're in Pete's Corner where we have Pete come up with a couple of questions that he doesn't give me throughout the week. And we're going to go and hit them. And they've been awesome questions all the time we've been doing this segment. So no pressure, Pete. Let's rock and roll.
How much does politics really have to do with NBA basketball?
Right now, I would say an awful lot. I would tell you that I think it's built on almost the same model. And the model being you go along to get along. You know,
Okay.
That's always been a political model. And there's very little dissent, as you can see, where these things have just been railroaded in, changes have just been brought in, and you have a very, very political forum right now. A lot of these coaches are acting like CEOs and executives, and I would say, I would take it even a little bit step further, that it's very corporate as well. It has a very corporate look to it right now as well because the corporate people are running the show. Corporate people are the ones putting the money together. They're the ones with the big contracts. They're the ones with the law firms and all the representation. So I would say right now it's absolutely very political. You also have, on different times, there's some pride associated with college sports. And from time to time, you'll have different parts of, Alabama and, Georgia, those rivalries down there, a lot of times they can get very political as well. But right now, what I would say to you is what you're looking at is very, very much a political build-out. When you say that you have a gentleman by the name of Craig Robinson, who is the president of the NABC right now, and that gentleman happens to be Barack Obama's brother-in-law, I think that'll provide you a little bit more evidence about how political things have gotten. And about the influence. Politics always has a grip, always. Good question, Pete.
All right, second one. With all the chaos in the NCAA, are they ready for the basketball season this year? Are the players and coaches and everybody else, with all the chaos that's surrounding with NIL and the portal and everything else, are they ready for this season?
I guess I can answer that very succinctly by saying, how could they be? Right? Same amount of time. But you're constructing a completely new team almost every single year. And there were some starting fives that went out the other day, and I sent them around to some friends of mine, and they were the new starting five for the season. And they looked at the starting five and said, I don't know one person.
Wow.
That was the response.
Okay.
And these are people that follow the team. These are people that are diehard fans. And they're looking at these starting fives and going, I don't know one person from our program. They're all new. And so I think that's had a detriment. Of course, we've spoken about that here. But as we said, it always has a real-time effect. It shows up in the locker room. These coaches are having to handle this. You're seeing some of the coaches that are going out of the business right now. They're taking on different stuff right now where they're just saying, and they're alluding to the fact that the way things have gotten have just been a little bit much for them. It's not the same as it used to be. And the change has been so rapid and so dramatic. I think that's one of the constructive criticisms I could offer it, is that if you wanted to bring about change and wanted to get it done, you could do it in a less destructive manner. It could have been brought over time. It could have been something that didn't show up as dramatic and deconstructive as I feel it is, all at the same time. But when you want to make change, the people that are trying to make the change, they know that they have a short window, and if they don't bump that window open and get all of this stuff crammed in there, then soon they'll be out of power and somebody else will have a new direction they want to take it, and it'll be somebody else screwing it up most likely, But it is what it is. The faces change, but everything kind of stays the same. As much as it changes, it still basically stays the same, though. It's the same elements. They've just amped them up. Is no different than this is no different than the wiretaps, folks. This is absolutely no different than the wiretaps. They were paying these young men before. Now they're paying them again.
So much confusion right now.
The problem not with the way they're paying them now, though, is they said, let's legalize this. Now you got everybody in there they're all tithing. Everybody's in for 10% of this kid's money now. And they're all tithing on this kid. And so it's really a little unsettling to people, I'm sure. Let's hope it doesn't impact the game, the viewership, all the good things that are associated with it. Because in the end of it, these young men still deserve support. They still deserve a good environment in which to play. I don't think they're in one right now, one that's conducive to good play, to good sportsmanship, to good results, and good return on investment, especially educationally. When you see a young man in 4 different schools, 5 different schools in 4 years, that's not even good educationally, you know. And so I know that transfer students often lose credits. Transfer students often get bumped around from major to major. They're in a college right now that doesn't have the major. They're moving to another college, and they wind up with general studies majors and just generally bad majors of really a poor representation of why you would have gone to college in the first place. So it's another good question, Pete, but yeah, no doubt about it.
All right, question number 3. I guess the whole point of preseason is to build momentum to the first game. You're what, about a week out from your first game?
Yeah. Well, a little bit more than that. They start Monday, and I'm on the 9th.
Okay,
so I got about a little bit less than 10 days.
How do you keep the momentum building to a crescendo for your first game?
Well, you want to have crescendo come in February.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Like you want to be playing your best basketball in the beginning of the year. So how I would approach my non-conference stuff, and this is a little different for me, and I can say this to coaches who are going to hear this, especially college coaches, and they might be a little bit surprised. I don't have a lot of pressure on me to win. There's pressure on all of these Division I coaches to win in the immediate. I don't have that amount of pressure. That's the beauty of it for me, because my whole thing over the 26 years I've been here is let's have it crescendo at the end of the year. Let's play our best basketball at the end of the year. So if we have some bumps, we have some bruises. I mean, our schedule for years in the preseason, those early games before we got to our conference were unbelievable. We played 4 top 25 teams in 1 year. So I go about it different ways, but you want to get to the end of the year and have that team completely, when you grab that huddle and you're at the end of the year and you have a timeout, and this is going to determine whether you win or lose the season, whether you're going to win or lose the league. You want to have a really good feel for your team at that moment, and I think that's much more important than the beginning. Now, let's go back. You can't get crescendo at the end if you don't have a good start, And so, but you want to be really, really measured about your non-conference stuff, because it doesn't have as much weight, And so there's 13 games that come at us really, really quickly, non-conference, and then we play 12 conference games after January. So for us, that first part of the year is just making sure we're all buttoned up before we head into league season, because that's what really matters the most for us, getting to that NCAA. We're not in a league that has multiple bids for Division III. We're not in the NESCAC. We're not in the NEWMAC, where 2 and 3 is sometimes 4 of those teams will get into the tournament. Our league is you have to go through the old-fashioned way. You got to win your league. You got to go into the tournament, and you got to win out. So, and I like that too. But Pete, killing it on those questions. Absolutely killing it. All right, we're going to bounce right into NBA here. A whole lot going on in the NBA right now. There's a lot going on in the NCAA too, because we've been able to, social media, catch wind of a lot of the scrimmages, exhibition games that have been going on. And so we got a whole lot to bring you right now. But what we did want to jump off with, I did not send this to Pete because, Pete, I heard you weren't feeling that great yesterday.
Oh, my Lord.
And I also, this was like, everything was scrambling last night. All right. Anybody who watched the Celtic game last night? No, I had them at number 1 in my Power 15 rating until last night. And so
they died by the 3 last night then.
We're going to go through that, Pete. We're going to go through it. And it was, their defense was almost non-existent last night. I give the Pacers a lot of credit, but they gave up 135 points to the Pacers in Indiana. But right now there's some interesting stuff going on in the NBA and things that you might not have predicted, things that as we started the season, and we talked about this a lot last year, you just wouldn't have expected this. Last year, Golden State was down a little bit. You wouldn't have expected that. The Lakers were down at the bottom of our Power 15. And with the talent and the enthusiasm for their franchise, you would have thought, well, they're going to fare a little bit better than they did. And so we talked about the league kind of being upside down. And now what I might be able to tell people is, at least out west, you might be starting to see a little bit of a comeback, of some of the guys with a little bit more tread, a little bit less tread under the tire, some guys that have been around, I'm talking about LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. And so what's happening out in the West is you're starting to see a little bit of the sun rising again. Golden State Warriors are playing pretty good basketball. The Lakers were off to a 3-0 start. They just got bounced out 2 in a row, but they started 3 in a row at home. Had pretty good run there, but then they got bounced out with 2 in a row, 2 losses right there, which kind of sunk them down there because they were doing good. When I put this together earlier in the week, I was like, wow, the Lakers are moving, And then, you have the Suns with Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's been playing really good basketball. They seem to have kind of settled into a rhythm there. But again, they're really, really missing somebody up front. But the number one team right now in our Power 15, the first one of the year, is the Cleveland Cavaliers, 5-0. They have a really good mix of players down there. They've got, Donovan Mitchell's a star, but they have Mobley, Darius Garland. They have some very, very good players. They have a very, very tight lineup, and they're doing it kind of like the old Miami Heat team where you'd look at their team and go, geez, I don't know, they're not all that great, but they make it work, and they play together and play well. Right now, they're off to a 5-0 start. Oklahoma City Thunder, we've talked about them for a very long time. The real difference right now that I see in that team is this emergence of Chet Holmgren, the 7'3" center that they have there. I mean, we talked about him his first year, might have been that redshirt year. Last year came out in what it was his first year eligible for Rookie of the Year, and I thought had a very, very strong year. But right now, he's emerging, and he's really, really taking it up to the top of the next level. Certainly helping the Oklahoma City Thunder stay right there in the number 2 spot at 4-0. Boston Celtics, 4-1. We saw them last year have some hiccups. There's no need to panic in Boston. They've had some hiccups, but Pete's alluding to something that we're going to talk about and encapsulate a little bit later in the show. But Pete's alluding to something, and I think they may want to talk about this. Also, you have Horford who's out. You have Porzingis out. You got Horford out right now, too, and that guy is absolute Elmer's glue. He is so good at doing so many little things, and he just provides kind of a representation and a persona to the team with his experience and all of those things that have been around. He's kind of like a Celtic whisperer, if you will, and I see that with Horford. They play a lot differently when he's around. They probably win that game last night, if he's in that game, just doing little stuff. But I got them down there. They lost. They're 4-1. And again, gave up 135 points. And again, we have not taken them out of the power spot in the Power 15 in months and months, going way back into last year. So they'll get back. The Celtics will be back. This will recalibrate them and get them moving again. Golden State Warriors, aforementioned, Steph Curry had a little bit of an ankle sprain, but seems to be struggling through that a little bit. But the team's 4-1. They're playing good basketball. And if you want to talk about the Celtics shooting 3 balls, these guys are shooting it from the Golden State Bridge, man. Phoenix Suns, 3-1. Kevin Durant, he's just so good and so talented. And right now they seem to have a good vibration to them. They're also a team that's injury prone, so keep an eye on that. Dallas Mavericks, 3-1. Luka hit a bomb the other night and just playing good basketball. Kyrie doing good stuff. But they did pick up Klay Thompson, and Klay Thompson has been shooting the ball very well for them. Where at Golden State, he had kind of lost his rhythm, lost his touch. I wasn't completely sure about how they utilized him in the offense out there and how they got his looks, his shot open attempts. But right now with Dallas, I think he's found a little bit of new life. He's shooting the ball much better. And sometimes a change of scenery is good. I get the Knicks in number 7, but I'm really, I have a lot of trepidation about this team right now. I think we talked about it. I think anytime you have an offense where the ball is squeezed by one player as much as it is when they have it with James Harden, I don't like it. And when Brunson's doing it, and I don't see that Brunson is that guy. If you have LeBron James squeezing the ball like that, I'd be like, well, that's LeBron James. But this is Jalen Brunson, and I just don't see that. Orlando Magic, 3-2 in the 8th spot. They're pretty good. They're not bad. Again, nice balance. The Lakers in the 9th spot, 3-2. J.J. Redick got off to a good 3-0 start, but last night and the night and previous, they got bounced. And they were on the road. They got bounced hard last night in Cleveland. LeBron's homecoming to Cleveland didn't go as planned. Miami Heat are in there at 2-2. Minnesota Timberwolves 2-2. The Denver Nuggets are way down, way down. I'm not sure what happens with that team, but I'm going to come out next week and give you a little bit of my hot seat with the coaches. I know it's probably only 10 games in, but somebody's going to get fired really quick here in the beginning of this year because things just aren't going as planned for some of these franchises. Charlotte Hornets in at 13, solid, just doing good stuff with solid people. I really like their coaching staff. I'm going to go Sacramento Kings here at 14. And the Houston Rockets, I'm kind of hoping for this team in at 15. They got bumped out by Golden State last year for that last playoff spot. Ime Udoka and this group, they have a good kind of cast here, and I'm really hopeful that they can get going. In the not hot segment, we've got the Sixers at 1-3. Sixers at 1-3, and they're really struggling. They haven't seen Embiid yet. They haven't seen George yet either. Detroit Pistons got a win the other night. Guess who they beat? They beat the 86ers in Philadelphia by 10 points. That's the Detroit Pistons, folks. They actually played very well, but they're still 1-4. The Utah Jazz, Lauri Markkanen's hurt. He's really one of their really good players. They got some other stuff going on out there. It could be a long, long year in Utah. Right now, they're 0-4. The Spurs are 1-3. Victor Wembanyama is getting pushed around, folks. I got news for you. He's getting muscled, all right? And all of the hope that this was a generational player, everything I'm seeing, it's not there, folks. It's not there. All right, Raptors are 1-4, and the Spurs are 1-3. Not good. Not good. No bueno. No bueno. Okay. We got a Bronny bucket, Pete. It took 5 games, but we got a Bronny bucket. And, of course, the NBA, scripted as they are, wanted that bucket to happen in Cleveland, where LeBron James began his career. He got into a 134-110 blowout loss to the Cavaliers, and he got in there, hit a little bit of a mid-range jumper. So I'm kind of hoping it's one of many for the young man. But they did announce during the week, I saw a little bit. You can't trust some of these things also because everybody's saying different stuff. But what they did say in this little bit of a segment was that there might be some G League time for him this year.
It looks like he had a good game against the Golden State Warriors, 35 minutes, 17 points.
Yeah.
41% from the field.
Are you sure that's LeBron? I mean, Bronny?
Bronny, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah,
That's pretty
it was
good,
in a
though.
loss, so they put him probably in garbage time.
No. That's the one where they lost by 58 points.
Yeah, so they put him in garbage
That's
time.
a preseason game.
Oh, that was still preseason?
Preseason game. Yeah,
Okay.
and they lost it by 58. So they say, go ahead, Bronny. You
All
can
right,
get all the
all
minutes
right.
you want in that one.
Okay.
Good news for the Knicks. We got the big cat. He came out of the cage last night, came out of his cage roaring, dropped 44 on the Miami Heat in Miami. Really, really good look there for the Knicks if they can get all of that offensive momentum going in different areas that isn't Jalen Brunson. I like Jalen Brunson. I like the way he plays basketball. I loved him at Villanova, but we got to spread the ball out a little bit more to be an effective offense, and that will ensure better defense. Because if you're just going to squeeze the ball and expect everybody else to run back and play defense, I can tell you right now, a coach that's been around a while, that don't work. All right, Scotty Barnes, my guy from Toronto. Oh, boy. If you're looking at Utah, it's going to be a long year. You're looking out up north in Toronto, it's going to be a long year for Justin Trudeau and the Canadians up there. Scotty Barnes out for weeks with an orbital fracture. Not good. Not good. All right, we're going to break down and encapsulate that Celtic game last night. Pacers played great, man. They really played great. Did a good job there, and they're so well coached by Rick Carlisle. But they gave the Celtics gave up 135 points. I understand the game was in overtime. It was an overtime stanza. Jason Tatum hit a huge three at the end of regulation to force the overtime, and then got into overtime. And I got to give the Pacers their credit. They got 30 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 assists off the bench from Benedict Mathurin, who wound up playing 43 minutes, played more than anybody, but he came off the bench. The Celtics, here we go, Pete. They took 109 total shots. That's a lot. I didn't realize the NBA was up that many high in attempts. Okay? You got 109 attempts. Okay? This is where it gets crazy. 57 of the 109 were three-point shots. If you take 57 and times it by 2, you come up with 114. So that'll tell you that they were well over 50% ratio on their shots in terms of 3-2.
That's nuts.
It's certainly was nuts last night when the
That means
Pacers
you're
just kept
getting-
pounding them down the other side.
That's what I'm saying. Are you getting anything in the paint at that point?
19 of 57.
Are you getting anything in the paint though?
No,
you
they
can't be
have
getting
nobody.
anything.
They have nobody down there. That's the problem. They don't have a center right now. They haven't had one for a really long time. And without Horford, without Porzingis, they're playing really a very, very guard-driven lineup here, no question. But the great game they got from Benedict Mathurin, but they were 19 of 57. Took 57 threes. Lakers dropped 2 games after a 3-0 start. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how they develop. And the 86ers lost to the Pistons last night, 105-95 in Philadelphia. Andre Drummond will now be known on In the Zone as the GOAT, the greatest rebounder of all time. He got 11 rebounds. I'm going to call him now Maximum Maxey. Tyrese Maxey has been the beneficiary of the sit-outs by Embiid and by Paul George. He's really putting up unbelievable numbers, folks. I'm going to call him Maximum Maxey right now.
So wait a minute.
32 points, 7 assists, and 3 rebounds. He was 2 for 10 from three-point range.
So if they knew
Go
they
ahead,
had this
Pete.
guy on the bench, then maybe this is a calculated thing, saying that they were going to let Embiid sit out, knowing they had this resource on the bench, or was that just lucky happenstance?
They got huge issues if those two guys aren't playing. In an 82-game season, and what we're going to look at is an 82-game window. They got huge problems if those guys aren't playing. Now, here's the other piece of it. Happened last year with the Grizzlies a little bit when they suspended John Morant. At some point, with the Sixers, if things don't shape up, within the first 30, 40 games, you're going to know you're not going to make the playoffs.
Okay.
These gentlemen also, now you have that new restriction on the MVP voting. You know, so they're taking themselves out of some of that as well. And so they're just playing for money, I guess, but they get paid whether they play or they don't.
Right.
And so what are you really playing for?
Yeah.
Don't seem like you're playing for anything, my friend.
Yep.
All right. Let's move it on. The Sixers did take a $100,000 fine for not reporting Embiid's injury, what the NBA thought was appropriately. Comments were inconsistent with what really happened on his health status, they said. Well, that's going to be happening all year, folks, so grab a hat and hold on to that one. I have really zero interest in that personally. Not joking around, we got the Joker. Holy smokes. 29 points, 16 assists, 18 rebounds in one game. He did not. This is for all the young guns out there. I know this is. I want you to sit down. I want you to grab something nice to drink that you like, something soothing to drink. He did not, after putting up 29, 16, and 18, he did not attempt a three-point shot all game. It's okay now. You can get back up. But he did not attempt a three-point shot all game.
Can I remove my
love it.
shocked face now?
I love it. Hey, he's bouncing around, man. He's in the middle of everything.
There
When
you
you
go.
take a three-point shot, you turn yourself into a one-dimensional object. When you're out there doing all of this stuff, he's in 3D land right now. Look at those numbers across the board. 29 points, 16 assists, 18 rebounds. No shots from three-point land. I don't know how you can have a great game. You didn't hit a three. Wow, I bet he was really torn up about that. Russell Westbrook, OTB on the Nuggets too. Russell Westbrook, they're bringing him OTB, which is off the bench. Not bad. Been playing well off the bench. 22 points and 5 assists for Mr. Westbrook. All right, we got NBA scoring leaders to jump into right here. A little surprising on the scoring front. Anthony Davis leads the NBA with the Lakers, 32.8. LaMelo Ball. Check out some of this guy's numbers. He's one of the Ball brothers, and he's the smaller of all of them, but he's really he is what I call balling out. Man, he is playing some good basketball, and he's like a little scamp out there. He's hard to guard. He can't, he's passing the ball like old school players used to pass the ball, but he's also averaging 31 points a game. Nikola Jokic, 31.5. Tyrese Maxey, Maximum Maxey, 31.3. And Anthony Edwards down there at the bottom, he's going at 30 a clip. Rebounds, Ivaka Zubac. He's getting 14 a game. Andre Drummond, the greatest rebounder of all time, he's in second place, though. He's a former Husky, 13-0 for rebounding, and he is also, as we talked about last week on the show, one of 9 Huskies currently populating NBA rosters. Great stuff, Husky fans. Chet Holmgren, telling you, Pete, he's having a great year. Alperen Sengun, and here he is, DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton is the guy that the Phoenix Suns traded. And now the Phoenix Suns don't have anybody up front. And I didn't understand why they traded DeAndre Ayton for the guy that they did, Bradley Beal. Because Bradley Beal is a very similar player to Booker. And I thought you just loaded up in that area. I know what they were trying to do because they were looking at this Euro model. You still got to have somebody rebound the ball. You still got to have somebody block some shots. You still got to have somebody dunk the ball off pick and rolls and get around the basket and score once in a while. All right? There's times, coaches, where you need higher percentage shots in order to stay in the game. That's why a lot of you are getting blown out, because you're just allowing your teams to come down with some of the worst shot selection I've seen in a really long time, and that's why your team's getting scorched. Nikola Jokic is right there with Ayton at 12-3. But how do you trade that guy? It's haunting Phoenix to this day, that trade. All they had to do was call me on the phone, Pete. I would have said, don't do it. All right, assists. Our guy, James Harden, Pete, 11.7. He's out in the Clipper land by himself right now. Kawhi Leonard is hurt. Big surprise. Paul George is hurt, but the Clippers don't have to pay him anymore. The Sixers are paying him. And now you got Trae Young in second place. Nikola Jokic, 9.3. Dennis Schrader, 8.3. Scottie Pippen Jr., coming off the bench for the Grizzlies. That's a pretty good story, folks. Check that out. He's having a monster year. Three-pointers. I wanted to bring this up because there's no Steph Curry on the top of this board for a very, very long time. Anthony Edwards is leading in three-pointers with 22. Buddy Hield goes in at 20. Jalen Green from the Rockets at 19. Peyton Pritchard from the Celtics. He's been a spark plug off the bench. 19. And right behind him is Jason Tatum at 18. I guess if you take that many threes, some of them are going to go. Blocks. I'll bring this up to you as well because it was Victor Wembanyama land for the last number of months last year. He dominated in blocks, but right now, our big guy out in OKC, Chet Holmgren, is leading with 4.0. Brook Lopez, 3.3. I was unsure that Brook Lopez could even jump anymore, but he's out there blocking shots. He must be rejuvenated. Victor Wembanyama comes in third with 2.7. Anthony Davis, 2.5. And our guy, Mobley, 2.5. All right. They unveiled the Dwayne Wade statue, and I got to be honest, I don't know what's up with these statue makers. I don't know what they're drinking, what they're smoking, what they're snorting. I have no idea what's up with these guys, but that looks about as much as Dwayne Wade as I look as Mr. Magoo. Well, maybe I look more like Mr. Magoo than this looks like Dwayne Wade.
I saw the picture.
It was an unbelievably ridiculous representation. You're putting up a statue to honor the guy, and half of America drops to their knees in abject shock and horror and goes, "Who's that?" If you didn't have a Dwayne Wade sign underneath it, you'd be looking at that statue going, "Who is it?
Who that?
Who is it?" Paolo Banchero. We're going to rename him Paolo Bonchero. He goes for 50 the other night, a 50-piece nugget the other night, and 37 in the first half of what he called magical. Utah Jazz, Taylor Hendricks is out for a very, very long time. He's a number 9 selection overall. He had a very, very bad leg injury. Just no contact, no nothing. Just walking up the floor, and I mean, it just really just came out in a couple of different ways, and it's bad. Rudy Gay, former Connecticut Husky, is retiring after 17 seasons. Goodbye, Rudy Gay. We liked him as a player, especially at UConn. He was tough, really, really good. All right, we're going to slip into NCAA right now. We've got a little bit of exhibition stuff that we wanted to talk to you about right now. Number one was Duke and Arizona State. Duke brought Bobby Hurley back home. He's the head coach at Arizona State, number 11 for the Duke Blue Devils. He was the captain. He was the former NCAA champion, former runner-up one year as well, too. They had a tremendous run when he was at Duke. And when people think of one of the greatest point guards in NCAA basketball, Bobby Hurley certainly would be on that list. But he went in and had a homecoming that was anything but when he walked into Duke. And the Duke young guns that came out there, we're going to give them to you right now. They got a big three going on there. Cooper Flagg, everybody knows who Cooper Flagg is. Probably projected to be the number one player in the 2025 draft. He was the number one player in the ESPN 2025. He signed with Duke. He's there. They have him. They have Kamer Malak, 7-foot big man who can run, jump, and do a lot of shot blocking. Really going to be a big presence in there in the middle. And then they pulled out a surprise in this young man, Con Knuppel. I talked about him a few times on the show. Man, can he shoot the basketball. That 1-2-3. They ran Arizona State out of the building. I watched the whole thing on television. It was great to be able to watch it. 103-47. Wow. Shire was on fire. The big three that they had came out great. Everybody was in a really good-looking spot as far as role definition, and what they were running on offense was really good, creative, in order to get their guys some really good looks up front. I really think that I want to see Cooper Flagg play in a situation that's not in open space. Arizona State really needs to work on a couple of things, in my opinion. One of them is their half-court defense really needs some work, but also they need to be better with their shot selection, because their shot selection created offensive opportunities for Duke on the other side that their defense just couldn't handle. And so that goes into it a little bit here and there, but in their parts, they had really some parts of that game where it was just very ugly, and not a good game. But Duke looked pretty good. They look like they could be good. Again, the question I have is I'd like to see Cooper Flagg, because in that game it was wide open. And that's what I was talking about a little bit. And then you also they played at Montverde Academy with Liam McNeely. Every single game they were crushing people. A wide open environment. I want to see what happens when they're in the half court. A team's really going to try and take the air out of the ball and make them play basketball and not let them get up into that run and move it and get into it. I think that's where I want to see him play. And then I'll be able to give you a better assessment of whether I think he's the number one pick or not. But right now, he's looking pretty good. Duke's looking pretty good. But again, I want to see them get into the clutch and grab of it. Arkansas, Kansas. This is a great exhibition game. Kudos to both coaches. Before we get into any of this, Kansas had some injuries. Hunter Dickinson didn't play, some other guys, but it was a boogie down, Pete. Nobody's talking about Boogie Fland right now, and I'm going to talk about him because he is going to be a superstar. Calipari got himself a good one there. I got to give him credit. I don't think he's a great coach, folks, but he might be the best recruiter of all time. There's no question about that. And so what I wanted to say here is they got Boogie Fland and DJ Wagner. They have John Newell Davis, who I'm pretty sure came off the bench in that game, and he started for Florida Atlantic in the Final Four. So that backcourt is absolutely loaded. They've got some good pieces up front. Arkansas looked really good. They absolutely smoked Kansas in that. They were very impressive. And again, it's going to be a boogie down in Fayetteville for sure. I was impressed with DeJuan Wagner, but again, Dickinson sat out with a foot injury. That is not supposed to be serious. All right? Here's an ESPN Top 100. ESPN and college basketball cooks it. ESPN's coverage of college basketball, the guys they have writing for it, the guys they have doing some of their TV coverage, they really do a great job in college basketball. I think that there's some other spots I'd like to see them do a little bit better in, but college basketball, especially when they get on the print media and they're in social media and all those places, they do a great job. Here's their top 10 for the year. They went ahead and said Cooper Flagg's the number one player in the country. Most people right now are reserving that for either R.J. Davis or Mark Sears from Alabama, R.J. Davis of North Carolina. Cooper Flagg in Duke, right now taking the number one spot. They did give R.J. Davis the number 2 spot. They gave Sears the number 3 spot. So that's been fairly consistent. Now you have Hunter Dickinson in the 4 spot. I don't agree with that. I think that's too high. I'm not a big fan of his right now. And you got Johnny Broome. I would probably take Johnny Broome over Hunter Dickinson if I'm formulating my team. Caleb Love, the mercurial guard from Arizona. He stuck around out there, and it's a reason Arizona people are excited. They're going to have a pretty good year if he has a pretty good year. Wade Taylor the fourth and Ryan Kalkbrenner are running, 6 and 7, 7 and 8, excuse me. And a lot of people high on Kalkbrenner this year. I am too, but I think they could be a little too high on him. I think Creighton's got some losses there that are going to show. I don't know what else is in the Big East that's going to threaten them, maybe from being in the top third of that conference, but I just don't know. I want to see that because I think McDermott, Self, Few, those guys are used to having pretty consistent lineups, and I think the ones that have the more consistent lineups this year are going to be, that's why I'm excited about Houston. I think they're going to be good. Ace Bailey in the 9 spot, the Rutgers freshman, and Alex Karaban from UConn. Absolutely, absolutely. Here's some guys I thought that they were a little bit soft on. Milan Momcilovic of Iowa State. All right, they had him at 98. He's way, way above 98, folks. Con Knuppel, the guy we talked about in the Duke game, they have him at 97. You're going to rip that up, aren't you now? You're going to tear that up after watching him in that scrimmage the other night against Arizona State. You better rip it up because you got him at 97, and there's no way he's outside the top 50. DJ Wagner, another guy, tear it up. He's at Kentucky. Arkansas. He was at Kentucky. Now he's at Arkansas. He moved with John Calipari, and he's going to have a monster year. You got to move him up, folks. 92's crazy. Jaleel Bethea from Miami. I think Miami's closed it out a little bit with some of their players just moving on and getting out of there. You do have Nigel Pack still, but you're going to rely very, very heavily on Jaleel Bethea. And that's kind of like, let's take a pro extrapolation. The Philadelphia 76ers have Embiid and George out. That's benefiting Tyrese Maxey because he's having a monster year, putting up some monster numbers. I think the same will happen for Jaleel Bethea at Miami because Miami really, really going to rely on him an awful lot this year. And I think he's kind of a one-and-done guy. And so if you're a one-and-done guy, you want to go somewhere where they're really going to rely on you. You're really going to be able to put up some good numbers, and you're going to improve your draft position. I think at 86, Jaleel Bethea is way down there. He was number 10 in the ESPN 2025 rankings for freshmen. So, I think you got to bump him a little bit. Kaman Malak, that's the big man from Duke. You better move him. He's 81 here. KJ Adams from Kansas, 69. Got to go a little higher. And Zach Fremantle coming off an injury for Xavier. If he stays healthy, you got to put him in the top 50. He got him at 68. I got to believe you're going to be in the top 40. I thought they missed on Jackson Robinson also. This is a young man who was at BYU, and now he's traveling to Kentucky with his new coach, Coach Pope. I just think they missed on that. They have him at 50. They do not have Boogie Fland on the list, and I'm telling you right now, he's top 10. He's top 20 of all the players in the country. After watching, I saw him in New York, and he's a Bronx guard, man. This guy knows how to play basketball, knows how to carry himself out on the basketball court, and he was an absolute scourge on the defensive end for Arkansas the other day. He was up in the Kansas guards in a way that they hadn't seen in a while. I want to just go on a sad note here for just a second before we go into Jay Billis's All-Americans. All right, Jay Billis put together a pretty good All-American list that has 4 teams. We're going to talk about that right now. But this was a rest in peace moment for us on In the Zone, and it was Amir Abdur-Rahim, the head coach at University of South Florida, just tragically passed away last week, and it was just absolutely breathtakingly tragic, terrible. He's 43 years old, and if you had to ask me to compile right now of the hottest coaches, the young coaches that are out there, the number one hottest coach that would have been on my list was this gentleman, Amir Abdur-Rahim. He had that South Florida program. He started out at Kennesaw State in Georgia, outside the Atlanta area, and Kennesaw State used to be a commuter school. They took that program really, really far up and then wound up getting a South Florida job and turned South Florida around immediately. It's absolutely tragic, and I'm saddened, and I just wanted to wish everybody in that community the best from In the Zone. Very, very sad. Okay, we're going to jump right into Jay Billis. I don't know, Pete, do you want to change his name to Jay Bias? Take the L out. If we take the L out of Billis, I think we might, because he's always pumping Duke. and he played at Duke, was a great player at Duke. But he's always, and again, you're pumping Cooper Flagg, so it can't be that bad. I'm gonna cut him some slack here, all right? But Jay Billis came out with his All-American list, and again, it's very similar. If you look at the top 10 that we just read out, we're going to give you a couple of differentials here, show you where Jay Billis differentiates with that list. Mark Sears, R.J. Davis, Cooper Flagg on the first team, Ryan Kalkbrenner, and Hunter Dickinson. All right. With Kalkbrenner and Dickinson, I'm a little bit shaky on that. Caleb Love, given his performance in the last couple of years, probably belongs on the first team. He has Grant Foster on the Grand Canyon team on the second team as well. He had a monster year last year. Wade Taylor IV, Alex Caravan, and Johnny Broom. Okay, not too many surprises there. And again, you could go either way. Here's a young man I'm excited about, and I think the Big East, he'll be in a kind of a recipient of one of those maximum maxi deals where he's one of the best players on a team that had a couple of good players vacate. I'm talking about Cam Jones from Marquette. He's going to be a really, really good, solid Big East player this year. One of the reasons is he's going to be so heavily relied on by Coach Shaka Smart because of the loss of Tyler Kolek and because of Oso Ighodaro, who are both getting a little bit of time here and there in the NBA right now, but are on NBA rosters and had a great career there. So look for Cam Jones from Marquette to get it going. Cam Matthews from Mississippi State, I'll give you another name. Look at him, but he ain't on anybody's list right now. Braden Smith from Purdue, the point guard, Zach Edey's buddy. I mean, he's a great, great guard. Second team, I don't know about all that. Tamim Lipsey from Ohio State, certainly. They had Smith third team, excuse me. I don't know even about third team. Tamim Lipsey from Iowa State, he has the numbers to move up a little bit. Zakai Zeigler from Tennessee, and Grant Osabor from Washington. Grant Osabor is one of our portal pirates and one of the top portal pirates of the year, certainly. We'll see how he does out there. Fourth team was A.J. Stores from Kansas. L.J. Cryer from Houston. I don't know about him being on a fourth team. Ace Bailey, Rutgers, because I think L.J. Cryer is better than that. Ace Bailey from Rutgers. Keep an eye on him, folks. They got Graham Ike from Gonzaga. And Tyson Degenhart from Boise State he likes. Tyson Degenhart was a couple of time player of the conference player, and he's the preseason supposed MVP of that league out there for Boise State, way, way out there. There's a lot of people that get left off of lists and different things like that. We've talked about Jaleel Bethea a little bit on this show. We've talked about VJ Edgecombe, who we like a very, very lot on this show. I think Baylor and Edgecombe, that's going to be some really, really good stuff going on there. That's going to be a situation where you have some really, really great competition at the guard spot, and it's really going to illuminate to people just how good the guard set this year, because if you're throwing in, you got R.J. Davis and Mark Sears from Alabama, both going to be considered for Player of the Year. But I'm telling you right now, Boogie Fland and VJ Edgecombe are going to jump right into that consideration. Then add on Ace Bailey, Cooper Flagg. It's why everybody's percolating about Monday, the day it's going to jump, and it's really, really going to go. And I can't tell you which way it's going to go, folks. We're not really in that business here. We will tell you which way it did go, though. And we'll tell you what happened, because Pete and I occasionally will make some prognostications on the show, but we're not really in the business of telling people what to do with their money and how to gamble and do that stuff. But our prognostications have been pretty solid. But we'll give you Jay Billis. He has Player of the Year Mark Sears, and Rookie of the Year, his Duke slip is showing Cooper Flagg. But again, it's hard to argue.
That's not a stretch.
No, it's really not. I gotta be honest with you. It's really not. And the other piece of it is too, we also have, as much as we have Cooper Flagg going to Duke, you also have Cooper Flagg going to Gatorade. Cooper Flagg just signed a monster contract with Gatorade, and this is the part of the NIL that I thought always should have existed. This is the piece of it that should have never been outlawed, should have never been illegal. If you have a young gymnast who's at LSU and she can also do modeling on the side that has nothing to do with her volleyball career, she should have been able to do that the entire time she was doing this. but it didn't work that way, and now it's flipped on its head, and that's why you have it. But Cooper Flag going to Gatorade. Pete, we had opening day in the NBA. We had the Celtics and the Knicks. We had the Lakers and the Timberwolves, 2 good bang-bang games. But Monday is a holy day of obligation in my family, as we say, and we've got November 4th, NCAA kickoff day. It just seems to come a little bit earlier and earlier every single year. As a coach, I don't really like that too much, but as a fan, I love it. You know, if I'm watching games and I'm doing that stuff, I love having that there.
Do they still have
You
any
know.
games at midnight?
No, those were the Midnight Madnesses.
I remember
and stuff
doing
like
the
that.
UMass, covering them at UMass.
They may. I don't know. We'll have to see. I'll look at the schedule a little bit closer. But here I wanted to give you a couple of matchups that I thought were pretty interesting for the opening night. And again, some of this is local to different people if you wanted to go watch the game, you know. But some of it is also, as you get ready to watch your television package, there's so many games on that it helps to know who's on and what you can grab, because you're going to have to make some choices this year. There's going to be some nights where you've got a couple of really good games on different stations, and you're going to have to maybe get that alternate channel button working on the remote pretty good, because there's going to be a lot of good action, and you're going to want to see. And there's a couple of days that are just outstanding as far as the scheduling, as far as the competition, as far as the teams that are going to go head-to-head in those matchups. I mean, absolutely unbelievable, some of the scheduling that's been done in the preseason. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. On the 4th, if you're in New York, you got St. John's and Fordham. That's not a bad game. You know, St. John's opening up at home. They're bringing in crosstown rival Fordham Rams. I like the Fordham Rams, always have as an institution, and that's a good game to open up with. It's got New York flavor to it. I'm assuming it'll be in Carnesecca Hall, but that game used to be a game that they could hold off in Madison Square Garden and get a really good crowd for. I don't think they could do that right now. Madison Square Garden has like about a 10,000 person limit for St. John's. They tell St. John's we need at least 10,000 fans in order to break even. So now St. John's isn't going in there with just anybody. They have probably 4 or 5 marquee games during the year that they take to the Garden, and then the rest of the games will be played in Carnesecca. I would assume Pitino and his crew are hot on trying to get into the Garden a little bit more, because it really does make for marquee games. But when you do that, the Garden's sitting there with their $10,000 hold on. So what does that create? Creates a situation where they're putting pressure on Pitino to come up with some really good non-conference opponents. And then we'll let you play in Madison Square Garden. But I think if you're going to open up with Fordham, we're going to keep you right over there in Carnesecca. So that's going to be a balance between what Pitino wants for his program and what Pitino wants for his one-loss record as well. So that's going to be a real deciding factor. And that is not limited, folks, to just Rick Pitino. That's going to be coaches all across the board. And what we're talking about here also is in this mathematical weapons of destruction, weapons of math destruction in the net, with all of these algorithms and all of these numbers being pumped out and bandied about. What they're allowing teams to do now, which is a little bit scary, is they're allowing teams to have their opponents, their margin of victory, their MOV included into their numbers. So if somebody, let's just say St. John's comes in and takes Fordham and they blow them out by 50, that's good for them. If they win by 10, it's still good. But if they beat them by 50, it's better. And so that's kind of the net ranking that really, really frightens me a little bit. It's just, you know, you're really, really bringing out the bad level of people here, you know, that you want to blow them out as much as you can and do all that other stuff. That was always kind of not really looked on favorably in our business, you know. Coaches often, you know, I mean, if I'm up 25, 30 points and I think I have a pretty safe lead, you know, and we're handling the team, you know, I'm going to maybe go into a zone. You know, I'm maybe going to take off my press. I'm maybe going to do some things, you know, that are going to let the other team know I'm not trying to embarrass them. But when you have this net formula situation going on right now, embarrassment is the operative word of the day. You're going to have to go in and try and embarrass some people on your home court. You're going to bring in some really bad teams, and you're going to try and beat them by 50 and 60 points to help your net number. And that's kind of like bullying to me, I guess. All right, you got Duke and Maine. All right, there's a little bit of news to report here as well. Duke is opening up with Maine. Cooper Flag's from Maine. And so they're going to open up with the University of Maine at home. It also gives Maine a nice payday. They're probably getting $100,000 out of the deal. But Maine had some really, really good news this week when they got a commitment from Cooper Flagg's twin brother. So he's going to attend Maine. And so I would assume that game might stay in place for a while. Well, probably, I don't know, Cooper Flagg probably not going to be around for more than a year. But that game still might stay in place for a little while maybe because of what's just transpired. But for the Maine staff, that was a very, very good signing for them. They kept that young man home to play basketball in state, but there were a number of teams. West Virginia was recruiting him, and a couple of other teams that were involved there that were of a higher level than Maine. For him to go to Maine, and as good a player as he is, for them to grab him, that's a really good get for the Maine program. And maybe they're kicking up some NIL money down there as well. I don't really know. But Duke, Maine, we'll see how that goes. UMass is going to open up with UNH. UMass, good opener for Coach Martin. We'll see how they go. Here's the marquee game of the night, though. All right? It's on the 4th. All right? 11-4. It's Baylor. And Baylor is playing Gonzaga. First game of the year. 2 coaches heading out. And I want to just give you a little bit of a sample about what I'm talking about with the net and what I'm talking about as far as preparation of your team to be good at the end of the year. There's 2 different things, and Pete alluded to it in his question with me earlier in the show during Pete's Corner when I sat and I said, it's different. It's different for me because I don't have pressure to win. And so I can take my time and do things what I consider to be the right way, the right sequencing of information for my team, the right way to produce and proceed through the year, okay? In Division I, you don't have that. In Division I, you got to get ready and you got to win right now. And so they place more emphasis on the other side of this somewhat binary equation, But good coaches want to get their team ready. And the only way to get your team ready is to play high-level competition. Now, Coach Drew down at Baylor and Coach Few at Gonzaga are made men. They've got long-term contracts. Nobody's thinking about firing them if they have a bad year. So they can also take on that more other approach that I kind of hold as a coach where I want to get my team ready for the NCAA tournament. I want to have my team set and ready to go. And so they're playing a schedule, both of them, that's absolutely knocked out of the park in the early part. Now, here's the differential that I'm going to give people, all right? Baylor's in the Big 12. There's no breaks there. There are no breaks there. Gonzaga is in the WAC still, and they get some breaks there. They're better than a lot of the teams in that league. It's one of the reasons they've dominated that league for as many years as they have. They get a little brushback from St. Mary's on occasion. They're talking about maybe some other teams having a little bit of a year this year, but for the most part, they've dominated out there. So as a coach, you might want to go out and get some of that really, really good stuff in that preseason non-conference schedule, because going into your league, you're kind of gonna win a good percentage of those games. Coach Drew is really, really gambling here, in my opinion, because he's playing some unbelievable out-of-conference games, but also he's going back into that cauldron of the Big 12, which they're talking about the SEC this year. They're talking about the Big 12. You can flip it up in the air, folks, and do it any way that you'd like. They're 1 and 2 as far as the number 1 and 2 conference this year. It could be Big 12. It could be SEC. We won't know until they throw the ball up in the air and some of these games come out. But there's really not a lot of question that isn't the number 1 and 2. Okay, so in this segment we called I Must Have Been an Advanced Scout for General Custer in Another Lifetime, we are going to give you Baylor's preseason schedule here. Okay, General Custer is advanced scout. They ran into a lot of little bighorns. All right, this is possibly what you're going to see from Baylor, but I applaud Coach for doing it the way they're doing it. He must have a pretty long-term contract because this is crazy. All right, they're going to open up the first game against Gonzaga, as we just talked about. The second game of the year, they're playing Arkansas. So you go Gonzaga, Arkansas, 1-2, right out of the gate. This Arkansas team is going to be very, very good. And so they have St. John's on their schedule as well. And they're playing none other than, in my opinion, in the zone, the number 1 UConn Huskies.
Ooh.
So they're playing Gonzaga, they're playing Arkansas, they're playing St. John's, and they're playing Connecticut Huskies before you go get Houston, Iowa State, and all of the other people that are waiting for you inside the Big 12. That's going to be rough. But it also presents opportunity to be the number 1 team in the country also, if you can hold it there.
If you can hold court and knock off a few of them.
Yeah, it's going to be good. And then get into your league and hold your balance there. Yeah, I can see what they're doing, but it can go either way. I got to be honest with you. I've been in a level where my schedule has been insanely tough and difficult, and it went the wrong way. We lost a lot of those games, and the team lost their confidence, and it was just a situation where it was almost my fault, honestly, because we couldn't get it going. And the beginning of it was just too arduous. But now you got Gonzaga. They're going to open up with Baylor. Then they're going to play Kentucky. They're also playing Connecticut, and they're playing UCLA. That's what we refer to as high-level competition. Absolutely no question about it. So we start off the year, Jay Billis and a lot of these people will have, they'll have their different takes on things. They'll do their different stuff on stuff. But with me, I really like to watch the season unfold and see how things go. And then kind of make more of an effort to be predictive. Right now, nobody has any clue at all, to be honest with you, the way things are going to go. Is Duke going to be able to get this freshman group together and really, really pull it off? But they have very, very few remaining players in the program. Is John Shire going to be able to pull that all together? That's one team that I think is going to create a baseline here as well. The major baseline, as we talked about previous, are the UConn Huskies. They're in three-peat mode. Everybody will be watching. Everybody's going to have an eye on the Huskies. Can the Huskies repeat? I give you another baseline. Conference, the realignment. We've talked about all this travel, all these people flying all over the country. We looked at USC's football program last week, and it hasn't been good. Is that going to impact in college basketball? You better believe it. Let me tell you why it's going to have greater impact, because you're playing 3 and 4 games a week. When you're a football coach, you get your team back on the plane on Saturday, you drag them home, you get them into the training room, you get them all healed up, and then you got all of these days before you play that very next game.
Right.
College basketball, you're going to be bouncing around, and you're going to be going from city to city, hotel to hotel. Some of these teams have charter flights. That's a huge advantage. Some of these teams are going to be flying commercial. That's a huge disadvantage. And those are kind of the underlying things that happen in this kind of arms race that's going on in college basketball. Is everybody's looking for that everyday advantage. And the beautiful thing is the coaches are telling us, well, it gets us back for class, which then causes everybody to belly laugh and say, Coach, none of your guys go to class. We all know that. There's very few of them that are actually attending. A lot of them are one and dones. You're going to go one and done. What's the sense of going to class? So there's a whole lot of that going on. But needless to say, this is a really, really exciting basketball time of the year. The baselines in college basketball have been laid with the conference realignment as well. Do some of these teams, because I was going through something before, and I don't know how it didn't make it into my notes, but we talked about all of the teams over the last 4 years and the amount of days that they had spent at number 1. And what wasn't on that list was any team from the ACC. Duke, 0 days. Not 0 days, but did not make the list. No, so they have to have 0 days. In the last 4 years, they did not make it to number 1. North Carolina, the same thing. Those are some of the plate tectonics that are shifting. That's some of all the stuff that's going on in college basketball. But, folks, I look up at the clock every week, and we're out of time. It's unbelievable. Pete, another sensational job in Pete's Corner. College basketball kicks off, folks. Get a hold of it. There's a lot of games going on the first, and then it's going to really roll out from then. We're in the zone. We're going to bring it to you as best we can. Keep on hitting us on our social media sites. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Keep on hitting us. Any questions we have, we love to cover them here. But, Pete, it's been my absolute pleasure to be
As
in the
always.
zone with you once again.